Thank you very much, and you're very welcome, everybody. So today I'd like to cover the topic about future radiology, and I'm going to do a little bit of crystal ball glazing, which means looking into the future and trying to predict what will happen. And of course, when you try to do that, obviously, there's a good risk that you can be wrong, but I try to base this as much as possible in the evidence that is currently available and the trends that are happening at the moment. So just conflicts of interest or other areas of interest. So I'm the deputy editor of the Journal of Medical Imaging and Radiation Science. That's a non-paid role. And I'm also the vice president of the European Federation of Radiography Societies, another non-paid role, typical academic, picking up jobs as you go along. But neither of those really conflict with my talk today, and I have no shares or interest in any of the companies or any of the products that I mention today. So looking into the future is a difficult task, but my university is University College Cork in Ireland, and it was established in 1846. And the first professor of mathematics in that university was a man called Professor George Boole. And this is his statue. It sits in the quadrangle of the university to this day. George Boole might be known to some of you who do mathematics. But if you've ever searched the internet uses Boolean logic, and Boolean logic is named after George Boole. So when you do a search that says animals and funny video, or say funny videos of cats, Boolean logic is used in the background to find those terms and combine them together. And he was the father of that part of mathematics and algebra. Interestingly, his grandson is Geoffrey Hinton. And Geoffrey Hinton might be known to you as a Nobel Prize laureate. He won the Nobel Prize for the invention of some of the early algorithms that are used in machine learning. And he gave a speech when he accepted his Nobel Prize, talking about artificial intelligence and warning of some of the potential dangers of artificial intelligence in the future. So obviously a very smart family whose genetics lean them towards mathematical thinking. I have been to Singapore before, so thank you very much to the Congress for inviting me back. The last time I was here, I worked with Singapore General Hospital, and we set up a reporting radiography system. So the radiographers in Singapore General, they give comments on X-rays. After they take an X-ray in the emergency department, they write a comment so that the emergency doctor can see it, and that fills the gap between when the image is taken and the radiologist eventually gets to see the image, and they call that RAD. So rapid access to a report for the doctors working in the medical department. Many medical doctors, as you know, look at images, but they're not experts like radiologists. So radiographers in Singapore General fill that gap before an expert gets to see the image so that the patient doesn't get sent home accidentally with a fracture. And that system is still working to this day, and is very successful, and the radiographers are very happy about the system. Now, if you scan the code on the screen there with your phone or with any device, it will open up a little quiz for you, just to see a little bit about who you are. So just open up the camera on your phone, point it at this QR code, the nearest one to you, and it should open up a little poll just to give me a sense of who's here, just to get a sense of who's in the audience. So 12 people have successfully scanned the code there. And the question is, what profession best describes you? So if you wouldn't mind answering that poll now. So 11 of 14 people have answered it. You might be a radiographer, radiation therapist, or nuclear medicine technologist, ultrasonographer, radiologist, physicist, or other. So I've got 11 responses. And the answers are, okay, so 54% of people said that they were other. We have 27% said they were physicists, 18% said they were radiologists. So that wasn't very useful. What's the other? What profession best describes you? Could somebody shout? Everybody's very shy. That's why I asked it online, because I knew nobody would answer. What profession describes you best? Somebody say. Imaging scientist. Okay. Okay. So imaging scientist, we would call that a radiographer. So thank you for that. So the next question is up on your phone now. If you look at your phone again, there should be a second question there for you. Question is, so the question is AI and radiology. There are questions for you there. The first one, AI is already part of my workflow, and you can choose to agree or strongly agree or strongly disagree with that. The second one, AI will autonomously be reporting radiology in my lifetime. You can agree or strongly disagree on that. And the final statement is AI can never do radiology autonomously. Yes, you have to touch the screen and move this along so you can change this like that. It's a different question. Came up on the phone. Okay, I'll skip that. So, okay, I've got answers here. So, I'll just skip that for now because it looks like a different question came up for you. So, moving on to the next question. AI and our future, or to the next section. AI and our future. In radiology, we've always worked together. Imaging scientists and radiologists and medical physicists, we all work together. And when we work together, we are better. And this is a very important aspect of what we should consider as we move through today's slide, because AI is a worrying concept for lots of people. So this paper by Perez et al., which looked at me, my work, and AI, how radiologists craft their work. What it pointed out, this was just last year, it pointed out that when they speak to radiologists about AI, there are multiple different themes. The three top themes were AI as a threat, AI as an opportunity, and AI as an unknown entity. And what we see when radiologists think about AI as a threat, they think about dehumanization and replacement. So this is a fear that comes from the media discussions of AI, where it talks about their job and their profession as something that a computer can do. Now, in imaging science, we know that that's not real, and that there's much more to radiology than detection and diagnosis. There is a raft of other tasks that the radiologist does, including patient care, including vetting of requests, including deciding what happens next, including communication with other doctors. But yet the discussion or the discourse in the media simplifies it down to a simple thing of detection. And that is dehumanizing for a radiologist, and that is not a respectful way to think about a medical doctor. And someone who has done a medical degree and specialized in radiology, to hear that type of talk, that is dehumanizing and disrespectful. That's one of the themes that emerged from this paper. It also it makes them think about changes in decision making and accountability. Who is responsible for the decision? If their decision is influenced by a machine and the machine is wrong, and they decide to go along with the machine, well, then who is actually fully responsible? And this is a question about accountability, but also a question about liability. They also mentioned things about the standardization of tasks and the transfer of expertise, that they're concerned about, for example, if sensitivity and specificity is low in a human eye and higher with an artificial intelligence, what's going to happen is that there'll be a transfer of that task. And so therefore, what is the new task that the radiologist would take on? So there's a threat to their identity as an expert. So I think this paper was really a good example of speaking to the humans about what's important to them. And it's also that radiologists see AI as an opportunity. It is necessary to evolve and to change and to see it as a complementary tool, because radiology has always evolved with technology. AI is the latest technology, but think about the changes that came into radiology with CT, MRI, nuclear medicine, PET. There have been multiple Nobel Prizes associated with radiology. It's always been an advancing stage. In fact, the first Nobel Prize in physics was for 𝐓𝐢𝐭𝐥𝐞 Röntgen, who discovered X-rays. So it's always been an area of rapid technological development in which radiologists and imaging scientists, they move with the times. But it's unknown. There is a gap between expectation and reality, that often the headlines are very far from reality. For example, 5 years ago, it was predicted that there would be no more radiologists in 5 years. There are certainly radiologists. So the predictions are often very far away from what is reality. And there's a bias that we have as humans, a technological bias, in which we tend to look at the answer of a computer more as if it's truth than we would the answer of a human being. So if I said to you, who won the World Cup? And I'm going to say 1968. I don't even know if there was a World Cup there. If someone says, "Oh, I think it was Argentina," and then you go to Google and Google says that it was Mexico, you're going to believe Google. We have this lean towards a developing bias towards technology. So, working with radiographers and imaging scientists in Singapore, we instigated a process around what they were doing. So they were doing their own education, and they were adding comments to radiographs. We added a process around that so that they had standardized training. And then we wrote a paper in the journal Radiography about the accuracy of the radiographer's comments following a 2-month experiential blended learning on appendicular skeletons. So they only had 2 months of training. They had no special course. And what they showed there was that after a small amount of training in appendicular skeleton, their opinions were 97% of the images agreed with the radiologists. So radiographers who receive this blended learning can add quality to the process. So this is the way that our evidence has been developing over time, that if we can see a way of improving the process, we often take it. Some education, some training, and things get better. AI comes along, and we see that there's another opportunity to get better. Reporting radiographers in Europe, it's quite common that radiographers report on radiographs, particularly in the UK, but not only in the UK. We have radiographers in Denmark that report on images. In Ireland, they report on ultrasounds. In the UK, they report on everything. But there are other countries in Europe as well in which imaging scientists report on small areas. Why? Well, part of the reason is patient care, that we look at thousands of images a week, and therefore we know what normal looks like. 90% of everything is normal. And so seeing something abnormal is obvious to us. As imaging scientists, we mightn't be able to know what it is. We're not medical doctors, but we know that it's not normal. So we can add quality. And what this does is it helps radiographers, imaging scientists, get better at their job. By taking responsibility, they get more enjoyment from their work. So these are the reasons why radiographers took on the extra role. And the number one reason why they were taking on this extra responsibility wasn't pay, it was increased knowledge. So when we look at this type of development, we see that for years we have been trying to improve the patient's experience. So AI comes along and it gets even more specific than trained radiologists or trained radiographers. In this paper, for example, we can see that this was the accuracy of an AI tool in clinical radiology, reporting, classifying normal and abnormal chests. And what it found was that the AI tool was getting a sensitivity of 99%, but a specificity of 28, which is quite low, whereas the clinical radiology report was 72 and 91. So it had much better specificity in the clinical radiology report. But when we looked at the radiographs with critical abnormalities only, the really important ones, we find that the AI tool is the same, only 28% specificity. And the radiology report was 93 and 91. So although we keep seeing these stories of AI outperforming, etc., it is good at certain tasks, but it needs to be trained specifically for each of those tasks. And what I like to say, after having read lots of these papers, is that AI is good at tasks, but it's not good at jobs. It can do a specific task, but it cannot do the job of a radiologist. So can it detect an abnormality? Yes, sometimes. Can it outrule abnormality? Yes, sometimes. But does it know what to do with the patient? No. Does it know what the next step is? No. So we're very far off that type of technology yet. Here we have another example where the radiologist looking at mammograms, they had a sensitivity of 69 and 77, whereas the AI standing on its own has a sensitivity of 67, but much better specificity of 93. So again, in this particular task, the numbers are very different. So one lesson from today's talk is that you cannot say how good AI is at radiology. You can only say how good AI is at specific tasks within radiology. So we can see that it's not very good in terms of specificity with chests, but it's very good at specificity in mammograms. And that is an interesting difference. And here we have an interesting case where looking at rib fractures in CT, they compared double reading by a radiologist against an AI alone, and then they had the radiologist with AI assistance. And what we see is that the double reading by the radiologist has lower sensitivity than the AI alone, but the specificity is better with the double rating radiologist. But when the radiologist is helped, by the AI, the specificity is 100% in this study. And this was 55 abnormal ribs in this case on CT, that the assistance of the AI helped the radiologist to get up. So the AI on its own couldn't get to 100%, but with the radiologist and assistance, we could. So I think that this is, the final example I'll give is in AI decision support for radiologists performing mammography. In 150 screening mammograms read by 12 radiologists, compared with unaided reading, radiologists using AI support achieved higher mean AUCs. So the AI support of the radiologists in those last two papers got the highest. It got the highest AUC in this case, area under the curve, the highest overall performance. Jeremy Wolf is a very famous perception scientist. He's the chair of radiology and ophthalmology in Harvard, and he works with the American government for those people screening baggage handling. So he is a perception scientist. He understands how the human eye perceives details. And his comment on that last paper was that when readers fixated on the breast, when the AI was there, the readers looked at the abnormality for longer time, but they looked at the breast overall for less time. So AI is not going to, and his conclusion here was that AI is not going to eliminate the need for radiologists. So in the space of 5 years, the experts have gone from saying AI will eliminate radiologists to being more realistic, and are now saying AI will not eliminate radiologists. In fact, the addition of AI to the radiologist is probably going to be the sweet spot. But it will be important that we do the research to understand what's happening here. Radiologists spent a lot of time looking at the abnormality and not looking at the rest of the breast. In other words, the AI is causing a satisfaction of search. 5 more minutes? Okay. So it's important to see that in a lot of these studies, this is a nice paper that was published in Insights into Imaging, looking at the different levels for assessing the technology. And what they found was that level 1 is the technical, what they said, level 1 is the technical efficiency, and level 7 is the local efficiency, the adaptability of the AI system to the local hospital environment, how it establishes and how it builds in with the evidence. For most of the studies that we're looking at in AI at the moment, it's very low level. It's level 1 or level 2. It doesn't get to diagnostic thinking even at level 3. So the technology at the moment is very good in some cases at certain tasks. Its real strength comes out when it's combined with a radiologist. We need more work to look at the effect of it with radiographers as well. But AI cannot replace you in many countries, and that is the law. So, for example, in Europe, the Europeans brought out an act called the AI Act. And what it does is it talks about where AI can and can't be used. And they have already established in law, for example, that you cannot use, no company in Europe can use AI to build devices to target humans as a weapon, right? You can't put an AI on a gun in Europe. That is an unacceptable risk and would be an illegal use of artificial intelligence already in Europe. But one of the high-risk tasks was impact on health, safety, and fundamental rights. So when you're using AI in health, it's considered a very high-risk task. And the AI Act requires that people maintain their duty of care. So you cannot delegate a duty of care to a machine. It's too high risk when a patient's health is involved. And in that case, the use of an AI in imaging would be only to assist an expert in making a decision. And this graph was published in Insights into Imaging in response to the European AI Act, and it's a very interesting move by Europe to regulate the use of AI. Now, the criticism of the AI Act in Europe is that other countries are just going to do it. Like America, China, and other technologically advanced countries in the world will just go ahead and develop these AI technologies. But if they do, they won't be able to sell them into the European market, and if they do, they won't get the support of the EU in any of the developments there. So my predictions here, and I'm going to finish up with this set of predictions and open up to questions then, is that AI will not replace radiologists, but radiologists who know how to use AI will replace those that don't. And so AI is here to stay, but talk of replacement ignores reality. And the reality is that there are legal requirements and that there are duties of care. In many countries, radiologists are named in the legislation. In my own country, radiographers and radiologists are both named in the legislation, as well as medical physicists, and are given responsibilities. And those cannot be taken away except if the parliament agrees to take them away. And they're not going to do that. People don't want that. People are happy to have a radiologist use an AI to assist it, but they don't want an AI making a decision. And that comes out in lots of evidence. Artificial intelligence is a complement rather than a replacement, in that it will support enhanced practice. Imaging scientists, for example, radiographers who have been writing comments will now be able to be a bit more accurate with their comments. Radiologists will have support. And AI, I think what we'll see is AI will help triage workload for radiologists. And AI-supported radiographers or techs might be able to use it for commenting, for sorting, and that will become more common. So I think I'm at the end of my time there, or close to it, so an opportunity to ask questions. So I'll stop at that point, and thank you very much for listening, and happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, any question from the floor?